What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad to be back. I'm so happy that you're here. A little Fatal J right there. Guys, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. Even though Dawson says don't say please, I say please because I'm a gentleman. But like I was saying, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you smash the like button. Hit that bell notification button so you're always notified of any new content the channel puts out. Follow us on Spotify. I'm trying to grow the audience there on Spotify, so thank you for everyone who's followed me so far on Spotify. At the conclusion of this stream, I will then upload it onto Spotify for you guys to enjoy on your car ride home or when you're at work and pissed off, or just if you want to hear the wonderful sound of my voice. And my guest today, who is Ryan Zeverfett. We're going to talk a lot about Star Wars today, okay? This is going to be a big Star Wars stream, and I'm looking forward to it. The show is also on YouTube podcasts as well. So if you go to YouTube Music under podcasts, you'll find the Nickatina Show on there as well. And like I said, also on Spotify. And guys, if you want to support the channel, please do so by joining the channel, by becoming a member of the channel, or joining us over on Patreon as well. Drugs is, I feel like, a Pepsi. That's awesome. Stay hydrated. That's always important. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring on our guest, and he's a good friend of mine. His name is Ryan. You know him as Zeverfett, Mr. Ryan Doobie himself. Please welcome Ryan. What's going on, man?
What's up? Yeah, I turned my lights off, but because I just didn't want it. It was just too much. So I see that there's a little bit of
what is that from?
Fuzziness, huh?
What is the fuzziness from?
That's from the diffusion of the light as it hits the green screen.
Well,
so if you don't get it, huh?
What does it do without the light?
Oh, without the light, it just goes. Yeah. You'll lose it altogether. Like if I just turn off, well, if I turn off these lights, There you go. So, but you see, there's a little bit of distortion here because of the other lights. So everything kind of, I don't know. So it's whatever. It's whatever.
Whatever.
It's.
So
I don't have a light box.
Anyone listening at home, Ryan is experimenting with the green screen, and he's having a little bit of some issues, but it's kind of like you're in the phantom zone, so I kind of dig it. I say leave it on. I like how that one freaks out when the other one turns on.
It does. It
turns into a black hole.
The lights are over here are pink and magenta, and so it does kind of mess with the green screen a little bit. But hey, man, thank you for letting me join you on this show. Appreciate it, man.
Now we've been talking about this for a while now that we wanted to do this show and sort of talk about, talk about Star Wars really, and it's something that most of the time when we talk about it, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm tuning out" because they don't want to hear it. But we're going to talk about it at length today, and I want to start off with probably the main event of Star Wars right now, which is Ahsoka. Now, Ahsoka Episode 4 premiered last night. I watched it. I know you did too. What were your thoughts about the episode?
It's the best episode so far for her season, I guess. I enjoyed most of it. There's some things that little nitpicks here and there, but for the most part, in my opinion, it was the best of the 4 episodes that we've seen. And that's because it didn't drag along in exposition. It didn't sort of, kind of get lost in nostalgia or whatever. It kind of tried to progress the story a little bit. Like, what are we getting into? What is it about? And that's more interesting to me than like the last episode in episode 3. It just kind of felt like, they were just sort of, Ahsoka and Sabine were just sort of chumming it like, oh, hey, chum, it was kind of boring. I don't know, the backstory. I'm not really well versed in Rebels. I know Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, but not really Sabine or any of these other characters or whatever. So I don't have any attachment to them. And if you're trying to sell a Star Wars fan that is more interested in live action than cartoon, you really want it to resonate, and you really want to show why you should care about these characters, other than, oh, hey, look at these characters from this other media that you might not recognize, but hopefully you do. So
but I mean, overall though, I've really enjoyed the show. I think that you can tell that Dave Filoni is really taking the helm of the show, and I feel like the story is more driven towards the actual story, like it's leading to something. While like a lot of the other shows, it wasn't really leading to anything. Now look, a lot of people liked The Mandalorian season 3. You and I both weren't huge fans of it. We thought the writing was very lazy.
It was very phoned in.
And it was very phoned in. It was just kind of like, well, let's get to this. And we had our gripes with when they were finally on Mandalore, how they were on that that boat that was hovering or whatever, and then like the monster came out and they just kept going towards it as opposed to stopping and being like, oh, let's go around.
If you look at it, it seems like, because I mean, what they did for the Mandalorian show, which, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, was that it was originally a Boba Fett movie. And so what they did was they gutted parts that they liked out of it and said, hey, we're going to create our own character. And it just seemed like they ran out of ideas after season 2. And in season 3, they weren't quite sure what to do or where to take it or where to go with it. And that's why it kind of feels a little bit stale. And that's why it doesn't really go anywhere. And it's like, okay, there are still some things that we can flesh out, but what do we do? Hey, what's up, Droga? I see you in the chat. But yeah, I think that, they kind of, for season 3, just really didn't know what to do. And they were like, you know what, let's bring in, some of these characters from the cartoons and let them sort of take over and lead us back into Ahsoka, because that was one of the highlights in season 2, was seeing Rosario Dawson come in as Ahsoka in season 2 for a little bit, and just kind of like, she had her little moment to shine, and that was cool. And so now she has her own series. And yes, like I said, Filoni is definitely wanting to, treat this with care, because this is his personal character, right? This is his Luke Skywalker. or Anakin Skywalker, whichever you prefer. This is his baby, and
Yes,
and yeah, I found it interesting that he only directed so far the first episode.
Yes
He
and no.
didn't direct the other ones.
I mean, essentially, he's kind of he's the showrunner.
Sure.
So I think he has a lot of other responsibility of the show, but
I'm certain that's true.
Right.
I'm
Well,
certain
he's
that's
directing
true.
the next episode as well, episode 5, which they announced
Interesting.
today is actually going to get a theatrical screening internationally.
Oh wow!
Warner Brothers doesn't want to screen Zack Snyder's Justice League.
What a
segue.
Well,
Here's my point. Warner Brothers doesn't want to do an international screening of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Okay.
Netflix still hasn't announced if they're going to do a theatrical run of Rebel Moon. But yet Disney is like, hey, we're going to do an international screening of a fucking episode. Now, and so my question is that what do you think this episode's going to have? Because there has to be a huge payoff this episode. It has to.
Sure, it has to have some sort of build up.
Or it has to have something where you're like, holy shit.
If it does,
just did that.
It will be the biggest fail that Disney has done so far. It's going to be huge, a huge fail. I mean, I think that it's kind of like having the Clone Wars movie in theaters. Like I went and saw that in theaters, with little slug Jabba baby thing, whatever. And Ahsoka was in that, and I think that one didn't do too hot or do well.
Right.
In theaters, it didn't really have the draw, and I don't want to say this is like swim or sink or swim, but if people don't show up for this movie in droves, I think it's free, right? It's a free screening. It's a media screening, so it's first come first serve. You don't have to pay anything to get into the theater. You just have to be there.
I have passes for it, but I'm still debating if I'm going to go or not because it's 2 hours away. And if I get there and I can't get in, I'm going to be fucking pissed. Because not only am I not going to get in, but then by the time
you waste all that gas.
Waste all the gas, right? But by the time I get home, the show would have already aired.
Yeah, I know, right?
I would have missed everything.
If you do that, I am definitely going to call you and leave you voicemails.
Oh my god,
about the episode. I'm gonna send you memes. I'm gonna send you screenshots of me watching it. So
that's why I'm debating on it. It's 2 hours away.
Sure.
I have my passes. I could go with my brother, and he's down to go, but we'll see. Because if anything, Andre wants to get in. yeah, Venom. Let me in.
What's up, Venom? Yeah, no, let him in. Hey, you should go in costume.
I should.
You should.
I should go as Lando Calrissian.
I'm a pansexual.
That might be a controversial take, but no. So my point is that they're having a theatrical screening. This tells me that something big is going to happen this episode.
Well, they want to drum up interest, right?
Well,
because
it's
moving into a movie.
It is,
yes,
and so they have to get much more buzz than they're already getting now. But if it's just a regular episode and nothing big happens, then that's going to be a huge L.
Yeah,
for Star Wars. Can you imagine if the episode sucks? If this was the Lizzo Jack Black episode, everyone would be like, "Holy shit, they put that in theaters? What were they thinking?"
That was not a good episode. So this
was horrible.
The one thing that you can count on or bet on is that it will not be a filler episode. It won't be one of those. It'll be something that has that's very story driven. That's kind of showing you where they're trying to go with this. I'm still not too sure where in the timeline we are. Like, is this before Mandalorian season 2 or is this after?
No, this is after. This is after season 2.
After. Okay.
Because in season 2, she captures the what's her name? I forgot her name. The Asian woman. She captures her and she says, "Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" And then that's where it picks up from at the beginning of the season is after she's been apprehended.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where it goes. And so, but what it does do is, it tells me that Mando season 3 was completely useless. Like he went to Mandalore and we didn't really gain much from that. You know what I mean? Like it was more isolated. While Mandalorian
that was their biggest draw for season 3. They were like,
What's up, Arkham?
What's up, Arkham? They were like, well, what can we do in this episode? Well, number one, we can, go to Mandalore, and number two, we can, bring in Moff Gideon, which was a fan favorite, and make him something bigger. But they really didn't. That wasn't a huge payoff.
It was not a huge payoff. But you have, which in my opinion is the best season of a Star Wars show that they've made on Disney Plus, which is The Mandalorian season 2.
Mhm.
But I thought, as kick-ass as that was, I fucking loved that season. The second to last 2 episodes, whatever, however you want to say it, the 2 episodes before the finale of the Book of Boba Fett, it was also very important because those were the episodes where you saw Ahsoka and she met Luke Skywalker, which was amazing. I was like, wow, I can't believe she's actually talking to the son of her master, of Anakin.
Yeah.
And so that kind of set the groundwork for that. I believe that in Ahsoka, that if not in this show, as the story progresses, you're going to get Luke Skywalker. He's going to be in the story. There's no way that you can avoid. I think you have to. How do you avoid having Luke Skywalker not be a part of your Heir of the Empire story moving forward when he's canonically he's still alive?
Well, not only is he still alive, but he's
Solo.
He's an integral part of trying to grow his order or whatever, and this is paramount to what's going on. He's it Paramount seems like if you don't see him, then what he did with the Emperor and Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi means absolutely dick. It doesn't mean anything. But that's the problem with Disney Star Wars, is that ever since Disney took over, there aren't, to me, man, there's no stakes in that. No one can really die unless you're Han Solo or Qui-Gon Jinn. But I and even Han Solo, he died, but he somehow either came back in a vision or came back some other some other way or whatever. To talk to Kylo or
weird,
whatever.
It
was weird.
Force ghost. He was just kind of a ghost.
It wasn't a Force ghost. It was just sort of that wasn't a great payoff. What would have been better, and we can talk about this later, but what would have been better is if you brought in Hayden Christensen and had Hayden Christensen talk to Kylo Ren as Anakin Skywalker, Force ghost or whatever, and the person that he admires is the one that comes and talks to him.
Yes, I would. I agree. And how that didn't dawn on them is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
Because it starts with Anakin. It should essentially kind of, end with an appearance of Anakin. But he wasn't even in the sequel trilogy.
No, he was. His voice was. And that's all they used. They had him on set. They had him in costume. And all they had was him talk to Rey. And that's it.
Why would he be in costume to talk to Rey?
No, he was in because they were going to use... They were going to do something else. They weren't just going to have it to where it was just voices. So they had there were some other takes, some other they brought him on set. They had him in costume. They did some things and they were like, nah, this didn't work. So they used all the voices. They're
like, he looks a lot older than he would look.
Force ghosts don't age. Did you see Alec Guinness age from Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi? Not really, because it was very far away.
But so I mean, going to we're kind of jumping around a bit, but I mean, going back to Ahsoka, I think
that's what Star Wars does.
But going back to Ahsoka, I think that this show is more closely centered around the story, and that's what I like about what Filoni has done with this show, is that you're following the story as it progresses, and it's progressing at a good pace. He hasn't put in any episodes that are just fillers. You could argue that episode 3 was a bit of a filler, but it still was story driven in what they were doing. There was never really just like a point where you're like, why am I watching this?
Yeah, it hasn't been like the other seasons of different shows on here. Hell, even looking at the Marvel stuff, to where, some of that shit is filler episodes. And you can really tell.
It's fucking filler up the ass. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if same. Okay, look at the Obi-Wan show. It was full of just shit that they just crammed in because they were like, they had probably a solid 2 hour show or hour and a half show. And they were like, how do we expand on this? How do we? Oh, I know. Let's put Leia underneath Obi-Wan's jacket and walk around like Mini Me and Austin
Oh,
Powers.
that was
Uh,
terrible. I
it
mean, that was
was
just like,
bad. It was like,
well, and that show in particular, I was very excited for it.
oh
They
yeah.
really like the trailer had Duel of Fates playing, and I was like, man,
Hmm.
this is real shit. When the series started, when it showed like previously on whatever, it showed episode 3. It showed the prequels, and you're like, wow, this is real. This is real Star Wars. And then you watch the show, and you're like, fuck, they're on a soundstage. You know what I mean? Like they're not on location anywhere. This is
It was
all
it was a
fake.
quick it was a quick turnaround. It was like, hey,
Oh, it was
Ewan is good to
terrible.
do it. Hayden's good to do it. Let's just do it. And how can we make it on the cheap?
Yeah, they're like,
And
let's just do it all on sound stages, and it's all
if
going to be on sets. We're not going to
mhm,
go on location anywhere. Now, in comparison, which I'm sure they said, oh well, the fans weren't really that excited for it. In comparison, Andor, the way
mhm.
that was filmed, the way that was put together, that's how Obi-Wan should have
Sure.
looked
Oh,
and
I
felt.
wholeheartedly agree. I think that the production team, director, writers, all that, they should have been who was tapped for, Obi-Wan. They just reversal. Give me a subpar Andor and give me a dynamite, Obi-Wan series. Um and I'll be happy. But that's not what we got. And I mean, Andor was great, it wasn't lightsabers and shoot 'em up and all that kind of stuff. It had some good action in it. But it I think it was better writing. And at the end of the day, that's what sells it for me is just better writing.
Better writing, and also the stakes were much higher throughout the entire series. You felt like if they fucked up once, it was going to cost them all their lives.
Sure, sure.
And
And that's the problem with like I was saying with Disney Star Wars and like, no one's ever really gone, is that you kill a character back, off their back. You stab him in the abdomen, that's not a problem anymore, Qui-Gon was, the last of his breed, to
yeah,
get stabbed in the abdomen. And they don't cut limbs off anymore with the lightsabers.
well, they
It's like,
can't because Disney probably won't allow that.
probably
Yeah,
not.
they might do a
Probably not.
hand here, maybe, who knows? But it's
I mean, a
so.
toe. Come on, let's. I mean, come on, give me
But that's the
something.
thing is that Disney Star Wars has become so vanilla that they're afraid to do certain things. And I think that when you look at Andor, that was the first of all the series. Look, like I said, I like Mando season 1 and season 2. Fun, cool shit. It
Mhm.
had that Western feel. It was badass. Okay,
Yeah.
but when you got to Andor, that was the first one that felt like a cinematic experience. Like you were watching a long form movie.
Well, that and as far as like series, yes. Another win for them is for me is Rogue One. I thought that they did a great job on that.
Well, and if you look at it, if you look at if you look at Andor and Rogue One, and I would even argue Solo, they all had the same look and feel to their
Mhm.
films. It had a very, it wasn't these flush color tones.
Yeah.
It was a more cinematic feel, and for whatever reason, they don't seem to want to have a consistent feel and look to all of their projects. They just sort of want. It seems like Kathleen Kennedy wants each creator to kind of just present it the way you want to present it. But that's the problem is that you can't let creators just like, how do I say this the right way? There needs to be an overall consistent feel to all of these
Sure.
shows that are on Disney Plus. And right now, they're over. I mean, like we're oversaturating our Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
It's gotten pretty crazy when it comes to Marvel and Star Wars, right? I never
Well,
thought I'd ever
with
say that.
Marvel, at least they had, you have a continuity, like you have the feel, right?
Right.
You have that look. Everybody has to conform to, to this. Unfortunately, they fall into the trap of like, creating the same tropes, the same exact story, just different characters, different,
Uh-huh.
villains, different,
Right.
love interest, whatever. And but that's it. It's the same formula every single time. With Star Wars, you do it opens itself up to, or it has, you're able to go off and tell multiple or different type stories within that universe because it's so vast and there's so many things going that can happen in the universe. And I think that, they really didn't know what they had when they got Star Wars from George. That's in dealing with the sequel trilogy and dealing with the Disney Plus stuff, with all their animated stuff. It just seems like, they're like, uh, they're trying to just, I don't want to say bastardize, but to sort of every single avenue of making money they're going to not turn away. They're like, okay, yes,
Well,
I
yeah,
want
it's
plush dolls. Okay, yes,
how do we
I want this.
commercialize the fuck out of Star Wars? And
Yeah,
and this was one of my arguments that
and
I
they're
had.
saturated.
Yeah, exactly. But and this was one of the arguments that I had on my previous stream. Was it not this past Monday on Labor Day, but the week before that? Was that I think that Disney Star Wars should be worried about Rebel Moon. I'll say Rebel One. Rebel Moon is
Rebel
because
One. What's
for
that?
one, it's a pitch that they passed on, right? For whatever reason. Warner Bros. Passed on because they're idiots. But you have a space opera in which they're not afraid to swear. They're not afraid to have sex. They're not afraid to cut off limbs or heads or whatever. So now you're getting a space opera that essentially has no limits. And so I think that as long as Rebel Moon is successful, they're going to run into the problem of I think Rebel Moon has the potential to expose the limitations of Disney Star Wars.
Well, it's like Deadpool, right?
Right.
Deadpool came out on Fox. It was edgy. It was, they cussed, they had sex, like you're talking about. So, now that Disney owns Deadpool, they're like, oh, we can't really do that. Give him Hugh Jackman in a yellow suit.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I was happy.
No, I'm just saying that's their way of like, sort of making it up for the no sex, no grittiness, no loss of life, no any, whatever. And those are two characters that essentially can't die. But yeah, I mean, Rebel Moon is going to be its own thing, and hopefully it'll be good. It could be hard R.
Well, there's going to be a director's cut. That's going to be a hard R, which is
so
nice. And so that's my point is that if Rebel Moon is a massive success, I think that Rebel Moon has the potential to really expose Disney Star Wars, to show its limitations and what it won't do and what it can't do, because it's a Disney product.
But like you were saying earlier, is that they don't have a theatrical release. So the eyes on, Rebel Moon really greatly depend on word of mouth.
Yes.
And even though it's on Netflix, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to pique the interest of a lot of people. Like a lot of people might not be into sci-fi. Oh, it's just sci-fi. I don't want to watch sci-fi. Even though it's just, it's just like Star Wars. Star Wars really isn't sci-fi. It's a Western in a space opera environment, futuristic, whatever, but it's not really sci-fi. It's not Star Trek. It's not like trying to solve, equations and shit and fucking, figure out, can you go out into space and use your lightsaber to fucking, deflect TIE fighter bolts or whatever. It's just a shoot 'em up, don't take me serious, kind of thing now. It used to be really, really cool and really epic, and that's why people would line up outside camp around the corner and wait for the next Star Wars film, because that shit was that fucking good. They took their time and they did this shit right. And you don't have that. And even if you have this media screening, like you'd mentioned, people, you're afraid that people are going to camp out. I think only in California, but I think I think that there's not going to be a whole lot of people camping out for this thing. Even though it's just an episode, when the Ahsoka movie comes out, I think the same thing. You're not going to have people camping out. Yes, we do live in a day or an age where you can just purchase your seat, so you don't have to wait outside. And that was one of the reasons, you wanted to get there early. You wanted to, to get a good seat and watch the show or whatever, knowing that you're going to see this thing multiple times, multiple viewings or whatever. Yeah. You still wanted to, you wanted to bask in that sort of ambiance of just reveling with other people who are like-minded, kind of like the viewers or the listeners that we have, today. They're online, they're listening to us. They're like, yeah, I listen to this stuff. I watch this stuff. We want to talk to like-minded people because this is the kind of stuff that we love. But are we going to sit there and camp out in front of a movie anymore? Is
No,
that day over?
but I mean, when you have a screening in which it's first come first serve, I can see people lining up at an earlier time. And if I'm driving 2 hours, if I don't get in, I'm gonna be fucking pissed. That's why I'm like, I need to really think about this one.
I think that it's sort of both ways. I'm very curious as to how. I just want you to go just to see the turnout. I want to see
Yeah.
what the turnout would be for
I think there's going to be a turnout. I'll say
I
that,
think there'll
but
be people coming over to see it, and but I don't think it'll be a packed theater. I think it'll be maybe 3/4 full.
we'll see. We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
not a lot of people on X, not Twitter, X. We're talking about even seeing it in the theater. They were like, "Hey, is this really happening?" Or people didn't even know if it was real or not. But I mean, that could change pretty quickly.
But
on,
also
social media.
people are used to watching things at home now.
Well, and
People
that's the
have
thing.
huge TVs. They have the great entertainment, surround
Yeah.
sound. You have great surround sound in your house. And you can just sit there in your own home with your kids, cook dinner, for your family. You don't have to worry about going out. You don't have to worry about babysitters. You don't have to worry about any of that. You sit yourself in front of the comfortable couch with the reclining, footrests, and you watch in your own home. And if you want, you can pause the damn movie and go take a leak and come back and continue. You can't do that in the theater.
Exactly.
If you do get kicked out.
But I mean, what I was saying about Rebel Moon, I mean, do you agree that there is a possibility that if it's a success, they could say, dude, Rebel Moon's badass because of X, Y, and Z. And guess what? Disney and Star Wars can't even do that. But the exception, I think, is that when you watch a show like Andor, that seemed to kind of, in terms of Disney Star Wars, for Disney, that sort of, was a little more edgier. A little more violent, a little more darker. And I like that because it felt more cinematic. It felt like I'm watching, it was always, whenever you got a TV show, it always had limitations. But whenever you got a movie, it felt like it was always larger than life. And I felt like that's what Andor kind of captured, with that cinematic feel. And I think that Obi-Wan badly needed that because it didn't. Very dark sets.
Obi-Wan was very claustrophobic.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was it didn't have even that little scene where Obi-Wan was trying to find Leia, and he was running around the crowd. I was like, I'm sure that there's like 30 people that they're just reusing for that one crowd shot. It wasn't that epic. It wasn't that big. It didn't really feel like it was an actual city. And then another thing that sort of downgraded Obi-Wan for me was the inclusion of a new character, which was Reva. And she was one of the Inquisitors, and just really not a solid actor for this role. I've heard that she's an award winner or whatever. And what's up, Gavin? And what's up, Jack? I've heard, I think Meg said something about, her being acclaimed or, got an award or something like that. And that's awesome. But, I can't blame her, but maybe I can blame the director. Maybe I can blame the writing staff again. It's her character just seemed it just wasn't needed, dude. You really don't, they really narrowed down and did a really small sort of story for Obi-Wan. It wasn't as epic as it could have been. Mm-hmm. It could have been a lot larger. It didn't even need to include Leia. He could have been doing something else for someone else and just sort of took him on an adventure that maybe, kind of piqued the interest of Anakin. Like, hey, what's going on here? That, I'm hearing rumors of Obi-Wan, and so he goes out and he tries to, to sort of seek it out or whatever. He sends his Inquisitors to, inquisit. And it could, but just make it on a grander scale and make him like look at more star systems and all, just more interaction, not just sort of like what do I want to say? Amos and Andy, running around from the law, Obi-Wan and Leia. And it's like, I get it. It's kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it's like, am I watching Star Wars or am I watching Dutch? You know,
Yeah,
um,
it just you know, they brought back a lot some of the actors, the guy who did
Jimmy
Lars and all
Smits.
that, and Jimmy Smits, and he had a
Hmm.
major role in the show,
Oh,
and
I love
I thought he
Jimmy.
did a
Yeah,
great job. He did an amazing job. He nailed that. But the
there's some
pro
really good things in Obi-Wan.
well,
And
to me, it's like one of the things that bothered me the most about Obi-Wan was that they took liberties to sort of rewrite canon and then say, you know what, now she doesn't remember. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, you're talking about Leia not remembering Obi-Wan?
yeah, having Leia be that big of a character in
Yeah.
this, uh, to me, that was
I'm sorry,
unexpected.
that's a rescuer of somebody that got or was kidnapped. And I'm sorry, but that's your hero for life, right?
Hmm.
If you're somebody that is rescuing someone who's been kidnapped, that person adores you for the rest of their life because they owe their life to you. And there's no way like you saved my father in the Clone Wars or whatever.
Well,
Like
but
no,
at
I'm
the end,
sorry,
she
you're
lost
like
her memories. Remember?
what? Oh, you're
Uh,
talking about what did they meet up with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones
no,
and just
but at the
flash
end,
you?
Leia lost memory that she was with him, and that's how she
Uh,
doesn't remember him. It was dumb. It was like, why even do this then? And so my whole thing was that look, it should have been a case where
Could have been another kid.
somebody had kidnapped Luke Skywalker, and then he had to find him.
Why does it have to be a Skywalker? Why couldn't it be
Well,
like, hey, they got, this other kid got kidnapped or whatever. I know of Obi-Wan. I know he can help me. Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only fucking hope. Go help my, get my kid back. And like, no, I'm trying to keep myself, hidden. It doesn't have to include Leia Organa or Luke Skywalker. They're doing their own shit. They're kids. Let them be kids. Go off, do your moisture evaporators, go bullseye womp rats, and then she can go to school and learn how to be a princess
it
and
was
all that.
just the other thing too was that it just I don't even want to talk about Obi-Wan anymore because I felt like they messed up on so many levels when it
They
came to
shouldn't
that.
have brought in any of them. Like the only thing that you should have seen as far as having any ties with the kids is Obi-Wan kind of checking in on Luke from afar. I love the interaction with Uncle Owen and Obi-Wan in the tavern bar, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that should have been it. Like no interaction with Luke whatsoever.
yeah,
Like, oh,
no,
here's a
no,
toy. Like, get the fuck out of here, old man. Why are you giving my kid a toy? Like, go do your shit. You were instrumental in killing his father or having his father get killed. Um,
and he kept
and
trying to
why
leave
would
him
I want you
toys.
around
Like,
my kid?
what is he, Santa? You know what I mean? It just had a lot of missteps, and it
Yeah,
was almost unnecessary because the story achieved almost nothing. The fight at the end with Darth Vader was cool, but I didn't like where it took place around a bunch of rocks and
mm.
weird mount. I don't know. It was a rocky terrain, but it also just kind of felt like they were at a theme park. It just
They could have been running around Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, what are we doing here, right? So going
That's
back
where
to
Obi-Wan was.
but I think going back to limitations again. I mean, it just feels like Disney kind of has some limitations on the content that they can put out. They can't really push it the way
Mhm.
Fox did. But then
Yeah,
again, they did it at an earlier time where you can do that in
sure,
the
sure.
'90s and the '70s,
Yeah. Now, I
'80s.
mean, our society is not as strong and as discerning of situations as we once were. Back then, there was a lot of things that you could do. I mean, there's a lot of movies that you could all the way up until I think the last movie that you can't make today is Tropic Thunder. After Tropic Thunder, released and it was amazing, phenomenal, love that
Yeah,
movie. You can't make any more of those types of movies ever again, and sadly, it affects every other genre.
it
And
does. It
so
absolutely does. Like
it,
Me,
it's
Myself, and
just
Irene can't do that anymore.
can't do that anymore. Like Blazing
Uh,
Saddles,
Oh God.
Love the film. Love it so much. Oh my God.
I mean, Spaceballs
Yeah.
and the humor they
You
use.
can't do a lot of things, and when you take things away, that limits creativity, and when you limit creativity, you're left with bland.
Yes, and that's what we've been getting. I feel like from Disney Star Wars, we'll be getting a lot of bland. Um, the Rise of Skywalker was a hot mess.
Sure.
It didn't really make much sense. It was like a jumbled story that was like the best description is when you say in the beginning it was like, don't stop, don't let him think, just keep going, like,
That's
we're gonna warp
exactly what they
everywhere.
did. It was a nonstop ride. They gave you no room to breathe. They were like scene after scene after scene, like, okay, now where we're going now? Where we're going now? Lando, hey, see you later. And then it was just until finally it's like, finally at the end, do you understand? And like, what? Like,
Like what is
we learned
happening
that
right
shit
now?
in the 80s.
Well, but here's the thing is that, okay, so you have your sequel trilogy, right?
Mhm.
And then they said, okay, we're gonna slow down now and focus more on Disney Plus content, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've seen the content that they've been putting out, and they're
Yeah.
focusing their attention on the gap between the Return of the Jedi and the Force Awakens. Okay, that's I think it's like 30 years. That's your timeline that now we can kind of, it's sort of like they said, okay, let's focus on this timeline because we kind of fucked up the sequel trilogy a little bit. It's a little convoluted, it's a little silly. Let's go back to this one.
Well,
And
not
see
only
if
that
we
is
can
you
kind of
have the
right the
Clone
ship.
Wars show that takes place after Episode 3, and then you also, they did do, again, same thing, Rogue One, where they did have something that tied in, in between, the Clone Wars and Episode 4.
But I was fine with Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was good.
I think
I enjoyed it.
I think what they should do, and this is just going forward, is don't release anything. Don't put don't greenlight a project until you refine that thing, like beyond refinement. Like, it is so good that it's too good, like with one of your favorite movies, Star Wars Episode 8, Last Jedi.
God.
I believe that they were patting Ryan Johnson on the back.
No one's ever really gone.
Unfortunately,
I fucking hate that movie.
I think it was like his first draft. I don't even think he went back and revised anything. I think, and it really shows, because there's a lot of stuff in that movie.
Well, I don't know, but it was his first draft.
That's his first fucking draft. I
I
completely wholeheartedly believe that shit. You know why?
I highly doubt
Because
it.
it's just fucking shit.
There's
It's
no
a
way.
shit show.
If they did
Canto
that,
Bite,
then
no relevance
dumb,
in the
dumb,
movie. No, not necessary at all whatsoever. You could have taken that sequence out, and they could have just met up somewhere else. It doesn't fucking matter.
Well, let's go to a comment here from Gavin. He says,
Okay.
I can also tell that Dave has an overall story for the show. And I can see where he's taking it. Unlike the sequel trilogy, which would change so much from story from movie to movie, and I agree with that. But nobody mentions Thrawn during the sequel trilogy.
He's already
because they
taken care
hadn't thought of it yet. They were like, "Oh shit, we probably should have done that." I mean,
Thrawn is actually Snoke. Your Snoke theory is bad.
and then the Inquisitor dude who was with them in Ahsoka, she kills him. He's just I was like, "The fuck was that?"
Oh my god!
You know what I'm talking about? When Ahsoka killed the guy she was fighting,
the bald
with?
guy?
No, in the previous episode.
Oh, when she fell off the cliff.
Yeah. No, the guy she was when she was fighting.
The green mist.
Yeah,
everybody thought that was Ezra, and then
Ezra,
sudden,
or they were saying it was the guy from Star Killer.
Oh, Star Killer. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. I mean, you got
No.
Sam Witwer, and they're like,
but he was in the credits. So everyone's like, dude, if he's in the credits, maybe that's him. And then she stabs him. He looked like what's his face, Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Yeah, I know.
But she stabbed him.
He just fucking farted and he died.
I was like,
what the fuck is that?
Even the girl, the girl you hate, the apprentice, she looked over and she was like, "What the fuck was that?"
Yeah.
What the hell?
You know what was so funny when
like a fart
during
cloud.
that fight, both her and Sabine stopped fighting to like talk to fucking Ahsoka. Like, hold up, girl. What are you saying? You're gonna go get the map? Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna deal with. Okay, I'm gonna deal with you. You still want to fight me? Okay, we're gonna fight. And I was like, why'd y'all stop fighting? Like, if that was Darth Maul, he wouldn't have taken the opportunity to fucking stop fighting. He would have just like, fuck you. You know, I'm not gonna let you talk to your master or whatever. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you.
I'm gonna fucking stab you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. That's one of the problems that I have with like some of these characters is that they're not really well rounded, well thought out. You know, like, oh, you know, this one we want to have a master and apprentice and blah 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 and whatever. I'm like, how many? Look, that one of the biggest problems that I have with Lucas, Filoni, and Favreau and everybody over there is after Order 66 happened and there was a huge Jedi purge and Darth Vader went out and killed the rest of the fucking Jedi, is that there are so many fucking survivors.
Well, there's a lot of Jedi.
Look, I'm sorry. The biggest thing with the Force is balance. And what gives you balance is what they ended up with, where you have Yoda, Obi-Wan, and then when Obi-Wan died, Luke. So then you have two, Luke and Obi-Wan. Then you have the Emperor and Vader. Two. There's fucking balance there. Then you kill fucking, the Emperor, and Yoda dies, and that leaves Luke and fucking Vader, and then Vader fucking dies, and that leaves Luke and Leia. And then that's why fucking, Luke went to the dark side. Leia was the light, light side or whatever. But there's always fucking balance. And that's why the Jedi were so cocky and crazy or whatever, is because the rule of two was established for the Sith, and they finally took them all out, except there had to be a balance at the end. That's why Yoda and Obi-Wan should have been the only survivors, because Vader and the Emperor were the only two that were in power, and they brought it to balance, which was the fucking prophecy. Your prophecy is shit when you add all these other fucking characters just because you want to have more people with lightsabers.
Yeah.
That's just my
well, and that's the thing too, is that you start to get away from the original story and prophecy that everything was kind of based off of.
Yeah.
I thought, as when episode 1 came out and you heard Sam Jackson talking about you speak of the prophecy, the one who will bring balance to the Force. Like it gives it this mystical epicness to the story, this kind of mythos that pre-exists your knowing of Star Wars. Even though Star Wars has been around for decades.
Yeah.
They added more myth and history to it, and I thought it was so great. But now, I mean, the fact that we didn't see anything from the prequel trilogy in the sequel trilogy was like, dude, how did you not even get fucking Hayden Christensen to appear? How did you not get you didn't see anything from the prequel trilogy?
They had in Force Awakens, they had Ewan McGregor. Oh, first steps.
That's it.
That
was it. And then that was like, man, I mean, I get it. I'm going to see Lando and everybody else, but even Lando seemed kind of shoehorned in at the end.
Well, that's because they lost Carrie. And exactly, we need to have a draw.
Which is sad. But going back to the sequel trilogy, okay, so this is something that you and I have talked about quite often. The Force Awakens, in my opinion, is the best out of the 3 sequel trilogy movies. And not to say that
I can agree with you
that it's a stellar movie, but
no, it's not.
The beginning of the movie, the first half of the movie, I think they were on I don't want to say the right track, but they were on to something that was going to work. And then they sort of just said, okay, well, let's go back to there's a big weapon and we have to attack it and we have to get to the inside of it and we got to blow it up. I mean, they got back to that and it was like
Starkiller Base was the stupidest thing that they brought into that movie. And it was just dumb.
It was dumb. And so I felt, look, you've already established a big bad weapon in the Death Star and you destroyed that.
And then they made a bigger one.
They made a bigger one and then nobody knew it was happening. I mean, like, holy shit. And not only that, but like, and by the time we get to the Rise of Skywalker, you have this massive Star
Planet.
Destroyer fleet. Saying
Oh, you're talking about the
and
Rise
each
of
one
okay.
of them has
Yeah.
a weapon that can blow up a
Yes.
planet. It was like, holy fuck, are my kids writing this? What's going on? Like, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like, oh,
Sure. It's
every
like
one
when
of
you
them,
draw on the paper and you draw your fleet, and then you draw the fleet on the other side, and it's like, you know, they're both have they all have like these just destroying mechanisms or whatever. It's like
exactly.
the stakes are always higher, and it's just like, no, dude, you know, guys, what do we? You might as well just have some fucking horses right on top of some
Okay,
Star
so
Destroyers.
to have Star Destroyers, this massive fleet that they've assembled, right? Not the First Order fleet. Yeah, that's already a massive fleet, but you
Yeah.
got an even bigger fleet out in deep space, and each one of them has a weapon that can destroy a planet, right?
Yeah.
That's like saying, you know, when they said that, I was like, what's next? They're going to go, we're going to stop you. Aha, well, guess what? Each one of those Star Destroyers is filled with 20,000 orphans. And if you destroy one of those, you kill them as well. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, whoa.
If you want to destroy, yeah, if you want to destroy all of them, you know, you have to get to the mothership, and the mothership will destroy all of the other ones subsequently. Once you destroy the mothership, it's like, you know, it's like that. Yeah, we won. But no, the the emperor has survived again somehow, and there's just no end.
There's just no end. And it's like, on top of that, if you want to destroy the mothership, there's also it's also filled with puppies. So you know, he's like, you kill that,
I hate
you
puppies.
kill them too. Like, oh man, what are we gonna do? I know.
Like,
Thank you, Gavin. And then at the end they say, not the First Order, the Final Order. It was like, what is this? A fucking? Are we ordering food?
The final
come
order.
on, man! Like this is all you can think
the
of.
last call.
Okay, so going back to the Force Awakens. Okay, so the way that movie starts, I loved it. I love Kylo Ren showing up, stopping the beam in midair. I mean, already they were doing shit you hadn't seen before.
But
so you were like, wow.
what they had done. Okay, I'm sorry, but what they had done in that film is JJ built something that was awesome, and then he destroyed it in the same film. So number one, he had Kylo Ren take his helmet off. Didn't need to see his. No, it was too soon. It's too soon. And when he did it, he looked like just some emo kid, you know, some goth kid, you know.
Yeah, it was like, oh, there he is.
Yep, there he is. And he, you know, he had his temper tantrum and all that kind of stuff. And so he was more of a joke. But when he first came out and stopped the blaster bolt and all that shit, dude, that was amazing. I was like, oh, dude, we're in for it. I was like, this is what we've been waiting on, right? Awesome. I didn't care too much about Finn taking his helmet off and, like, you know, looking at the carnage and damage and all that and whatever. I don't know, but that wasn't horrible. But when Rey came out, she started off, I was like, okay, awesome. You know, she's scavenger, she's doing her thing, whatever. You know,
see
like,
the Star Destroyer like in the sand.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
awesome.
It was like,
and
wow,
then when she got into the ship, you know, she's flying it like a badass, right? That was awesome. But it was like, well, where did she learn that? And then and everything that she did after that, when she met with Han, everything she did, she failed upwards. She didn't fail and like have to learn a lesson, or she didn't fail and like have to, you know, figure shit out to come back stronger later. That, you know, that was where he destroyed what he built in the same film. And that's why I think that it's not completely The Last Jedi that destroyed the sequel trilogy. It started off with problems in The Force Awakens.
Right. But I mean, there were things that I enjoyed about The Force Awakens. In fact, I love the fact that, you know,
what's up, Jamie?
She gets, what do you call it? You know, she finds the lightsaber, which we never found out where the
That's a
fuck
story for
that
another
came
time.
from.
It's a story for another time.
But still, when I saw the lightsaber, I'm like, how the fuck did that get there? I want to know. Never found out.
What? Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but what they should have done, it should never have been that lightsaber. It should have been like a kyber crystal or something like that. You know, like we don't have the, you know, we don't we don't have I don't want to say technology, but we don't have all the supplies to create a lightsaber for you or whatever. But here's a kyber crystal. Take that on your journey. It's kind of like, you go to, playing in a video game. It's like, yeah, take this crystal on your quest. And then you forge later and you do some things or whatever. And that could have been cool, but it was just kind of like, okay, you have a lightsaber. Nobody knows how to use it. Nobody knows what they're doing. Like Luke didn't fight with a lightsaber in the first film. Anakin didn't fight with a lightsaber in the first film.
I think that seeing Finn use a lightsaber.
Oh, that's fine. I was fine with it because he's trained in combat. I wasn't fine with her beating the shit out of. I mean, look, okay, yes, Kylo got hit in the abdomen with a blaster, right? And it's a strong blaster because it's the Wookiee. What is that? I don't know. It's a big ass blaster.
It's
crossbow. And he got hit. And so I get it, but that is not enough to say, okay, she can go toe to toe with this guy who can use the Force. He doesn't even have to pull out his blade. He could just use the Force and just knock her into trees. But did he do that? No, he didn't.
No. In fact, not only that, but when he fought Finn actually hit him. You know what I mean? Like Finn actually got him. I always felt that when Kylo fought Finn, it should have been like when he says, "Come and get me." It should have been like bam, 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 and he's out. You know what I mean? Like real quick, where you're like, "Oh shit, that was a bad idea."
Sure.
You know what I mean? Finn's down. You're
like, the thing. Okay, so
you're going against a trained Jedi, a Sith at this point. So he should be able to
look at this new thing with Sabine, right? She is a non-Force user, just like Finn, even though we think Finn is now Force sensitive or whatever. And I guess she will be too, because it is what it is. But they should not, when you're using the Force, you see the future, and you can anticipate moves. Like there should not have been, right? Like you said, there shouldn't have been a way where Finn hit Kylo, and there shouldn't be a way that Sabine wins either. She can protect herself. I have no problems. Like when he grabbed the lightsaber and they were in that one area with Han Solo and Chewie, and the X-Wings are flying around and all that, and he was using, they were like, traitor. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know? He's not even in fatigues. You're not supposed to take your helmet off. How did you recognize him? But it's like, traitor. And then they start fighting and shit. And that's fine. But it was like, I get it that he's trained in combat, but and I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with him fighting a Force user and kind of getting not the best of him, but just kind of nicking him. Like, what are we actually doing here? Like I said, he should have used the Force on Rey. Had no reason to fight her with a lightsaber. She had no combat training other than like her staff that she had back on Jakku, Tatooine Part 2. Sure, she can fight with a stick, but that doesn't, okay, just like Donatello can fight with a bow staff, but that doesn't mean that he can grab Leonardo's swords and fucking start, fighting like he knows what the fuck he's doing, and classically trained and shit. He knows how to fight with a bow staff. Leave him with a bow staff. So I mean, it's just there's stuff that I'm like, what, this shit really isn't well thought out. And that's what I have a problem with.
And that was the problem, is that by the time, Kylo started to confront Rey, they were like, well, they have to fight each other, right? I mean, it's a movie. We have to get them to fight each other. But I mean, like, I love the scene where she's able to summon or grab the lightsaber away from Kylo, and the music kicks in and she ignites it. But it's like at that point, that's almost where the ground should have broke and there was a separation between them. You know what I mean? Like right after she got the lightsaber, they shouldn't have fought each other because she shouldn't have known how to fight him.
Yeah.
Because he got hit a couple of times, whatever, but she bested him. I mean, she hit him in the face. Yeah. She had him down, and then the ground separated. It was like, well,
and it was conveniently separating.
Yeah, it was. And Gavin, that's the whole point of this, is that we were going to talk about this as well, is, the sequel trilogy. And the thing too is that we talked about, how they could have made the sequel trilogy better. I always felt that, instead of being the First Order being this massive armada that's just flying in and has a Star Killer base and is blowing up planets, taking out, destroying the whole New Republic. To me, that was the biggest mistake. I think that the film should have started
It
off.
didn't even establish. I'm sorry, but it was. It didn't
Well,
establish the First Order. It didn't establish the Resistance. It didn't establish anything. It was just kind of like, okay, we're here. So we're kind of in the same situation as we were 30 years ago, but with just different names.
When the Force Awakens started, you had the New Republic, and then you had the First Order, and then you had the Resistance that was in the middle, who were trying to stop the First Order, but the New Republic didn't see the First Order as a threat or even in a real existence. Which again is like, okay, hold on a minute. Hold on. First of all, Han Solo should have been a general. Princess Leia, fucking, I would have made her the chancellor or a senator, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she has to be up
sure.
there. You should have seen they should have stayed on Coruscant. You should have gone back to Coruscant where you see the New Republic. You see General Solo. You see, you see everyone where you last left them.
Yeah.
Luke is, he has his academy on, wherever that's located.
That was another big mistake. Was like,
Lando
oh, where's
was
Luke
there.
Skywalker? And then finally they show him at the end, and it's just pathetic.
And so everyone should have been essentially where you last left them. You still could have had Kylo, who turned to the dark side.
Sure.
Still have that. But his parents should not have been so broken, and Han going back to being a smuggler.
Well, what could have been, the smuggler thing was really dumb. But what they should have done was, I don't mind the general thing. And Leia becoming a not the chancellor, but just a senator. Yeah. And it could have been interesting where, people find out like, okay, her father was Darth Vader. That's kind of fucked up. Why she's a senator? And then, so people trying to smear her, but then you have, Han, who's not really with her. He's off doing his own thing. So that kind of creates a strain, the dynamic right there, with them two, and then, how much time that they would actually be able to give to Kylo and how resentful he would be, for that. But yeah, I mean, again, Gavin, we were talking about Ahsoka, and we did bring it into the sequel trilogy just because, it all connects somehow.
It's leading towards that.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about this not too long ago, but I felt that, at the end of, or at the climax of The Force Awakens, when you see Starkiller Base destroying Chandrilla and the other planets that the New Republic has now moved to because they want to move away from the corruption of Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that I didn't like. I thought that what should have happened is you should have saw a systematic destruction of both the New Republic and the New Jedi Academy as you saw the rise of the First Order.
Yeah.
And so here you have these coordinated, essentially a coordinated terrorist attacks on all these different aspects of the New Republic and the Jedi and the New Jedi Council, where the First Order then moves in to kind of claim, kind of take over what was there, because now that they've been hobbled, disabled, now we can move in and sort of reclaim this, the galaxy for the First Order.
Sure.
And that having a point in the movie where you see the Academy, get destroyed, go up in flames, where Kylo Ren and his Knights of Ren show up, kill a bunch of Jedi, take some of them with them, and take off, right? And leaves Luke in despair, right? Where you see the fall, or at least a major loss for the New Republic, the death of Han Solo. You know what I mean? Like, you could really build this up to just being like just a tragic ending to what we saw in Return of the Jedi, right? But you're watching your heroes take on this loss.
Mm. Well, what they were doing,
watch them rise from that loss and become something bigger and badder. And so I think that you do that by having your new characters be alongside your original characters and going through their demise, going through their fall, and then essentially in their rise, the new characters sort of rise to help the old characters get back what was lost, and some of them are going to die
Sure.
in the process. Um, but I think that's where they had a misstep. And
Yeah.
if you watch like Project Justice League, for instance, you watch the fall of the Justice League, where all these things are happening at once at the same time, where all these aspects, all the different characters are being killed off or attacked, and that's what we should have gotten at the end of the Force Awakens, or like at the a little more than midway point. Instead of having the planets being blown up by Starkiller Base, it should have been that the New Order, or the First Order, is taking down the New Republic, and
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to see was a systematic takedown of the New Republic, and then the First Order coming in with their fleet to kind of clean up the mess after all the destruction. And I think that would have been really cool. And on top of that, the main bad guy, Snoke, should have just been Darth Plagueis
Yeah.
from the start. And that would have brought things full circle, because then you would have said he would have told the story about
Sure.
about how he manipulated the midichlorians to create Anakin Skywalker and to impregnate Shmi.
Hmm.
And so that's where the story should have reconnected to. Like, now we're back to Darth Plagueis, who didn't die at the hands of Palpatine. Even though Palpatine thought he killed him, he found a way to live. And
Sure.
now he's come back to finish what he had started. But this time, he wants to destroy all of them and take the galaxy for himself. But they didn't do that.
Hmm. No, they didn't.
It's sad.
I mean, and the biggest thing of what they could have done was, make him Darth Plagueis, and also show how he's sort of a parasite, and he needs a new body, and that's the whole so he's been sort of like a vampire, sucking the life from beings or whatever, and that's how he's been sort of staying alive through the the Empire. He wasn't strong with the Force, couldn't do much. That's why the balance wasn't there. It wasn't an imbalance during the whole Vader, Emperor, Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda kind of era. And so what he needs to do, or what he needs to have the DNA or the midichlorians from a descendant of Anakin Skywalker to administer to a new clone of Hayden Christensen, and then import like kind of take over his body in the new sort of clone of Hayden. And then that could have been like, okay, Darth Plagueis has a Hayden body, which is a pure midichlorian kind of host, and then that thing can self-sustain, and then he's forever a threat or whatever, and then that's what Rey could fight or whatever at the end, or Rey and Ben could fight, whatever. It could have been more interesting than the tchotchke evil emperor in an arena with Sith, in a Sith arena.
Like, who the hell were all them? They're like,
yeah.
When everything falls apart, let's get out of here. Who were they?
I was like, I'm out.
What the fuck were they doing? You know what I mean? It's I love the idea that Darth Plagueis is, in a sense, he's like a symbiote, where he needs to have a body.
Sure.
That and or may it be that Darth Plagueis turned himself into a symbiote. When he died, he was somehow able to manipulate his own DNA into being able to like leave his body and find a replacement body who he's been living in, who was not Force sensitive, right?
Or he could be that one guy. I think he died or whatever in the Clone Wars show, where it was like the father, the sister, and the brother, and like the brother was the dark side, the sister was the light side, and the father was sort of, I guess, like a I think it could have been like that was sort of like a remnant of him with Snoke or whatever.
Or Snoke, I mean, he would just be Plagueis. His body is so fucked up and tore up looking because that's what Palpatine had did to him so many years ago. And so because of that, he's on the cusp of achieving what he's wanted to achieve from the start before Palpatine turned on him. But because his body is so decrepit and so old, and perhaps he needs a back to tank or whatever to keep his body even like working correctly,
Sure.
for a short amount of time. His whole plan in the end is that he was planning on taking over Kylo Ren's body. But once Kylo, in the First Order, once Kylo found Rey, that's when Plagueis
See, I don't
realized.
think it should be Kylo because Kylo's not a pure. He's got Solo blood in him,
Right,
and so he's not he's not pure like Anakin was. Anakin was made from the
yeah, Anakin was
midichlorians,
pure, but
and that's
still,
why I say he should make him again, but not not have him grow up as a baby. Just kind of have that sort of accelerated growth like they did with the clone troopers.
right. No, and I get that, but what I'm saying is that you can cause this kind of conflict between the whole Rey and Kylo scenario because now he doesn't care about Kylo Ren anymore. Kylo Ren is just like a puppet. Like he's just like, oh, God, you're just an annoying kid. He wants Rey because she is more powerful than Kylo is. She has the potential to be more powerful, and because of that, he's like, you know what? She's the body that I want to take over. And
You're
so,
going to get into the quantum leap thing. People are going to hate it. Like, oh no, he can't get into her body. That's
well, he doesn't though. He doesn't
fucked up.
actually take over either one of them. You know what I mean?
And people would rage. No,
Well,
an old man trying to get into a little girl.
Well, no, but if he starts playing and he wants to assimilate into another body so that he is the most powerful Force user out there.
That's why I still stick with Anakin Skywalker, even
But
though
still,
it would be his DNA, which is why he would need Ben so that he can get that blood to pump through that body, because it still has the midichlorians, which go from symbiote to symbiote, and the only thing that he would use Rey for is to sort of siphon power from her and then kill her ultimately, so that, because I think what happens and this is just always been my theory, is that when it's kind of like Highlander, when someone dies, like the other beings get more powerful because you're lessening the amount of midichlorian type people, or force sensitive people.
But where are you going to get the DNA of Anakin to clone him? From his skull?
From the
his
remains.
Arm got cut off?
Not from his arm. No, from the remains. Or maybe he had shit like back before Smee. Maybe he went back and I mean, this is sci-fi.
What Gavin's saying here,
it's all on fire.
This should have been the premise of the sequel trilogy. If you read the Plagueis novel, right? Palp's Rise of Power was literally supposed to be meant for Plagueis, but he killed him, right? And took his place. So that should have been the premise of why Plagueis was now back and trying to finish what he had started.
Right.
I think we can agree on that. We can agree that that should have been the premise. And I think that would have like, okay, Plagueis is back and he wants to finish what he started before Palpatine fucked everything up. And then you go from there. And I think you have a much stronger story there. And also the way the story ended up, I would have rather that Rey, they're like, oh, she's nobody. She has no, oh, she's a Palpatine. I would have rather they would have made Rey just a clone. And so like that scene where she looks, into that mirror and she sees like a bunch of reflections of herself.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I thought that that's where they were trying to show you that like she's a clone. She's a clone of different DNA from different Force users, and from Palpatine and whatnot, to make the most, like, to try and create like the ultimate clone for Plagueis to take over. And so that's why, when you see all those reflections of her, it's symbolizing that she is a clone of many, and likely many of them did not succeed in terms of their becoming an actual person. And that's why she feels like she's nobody, because she really was nobody because she was a clone. And so I thought that would have been kind of cool. Like, hey, a clone. Now we bring it full circle. We saw the clones in episode 2, and now here is another clone who now is become the greatest Force user alive at this point. So I thought that would have been kind of like, okay, that's kind of a interesting kind of angle to play off of. But instead, they went with the shittiest one there was. So it's just hard to watch Star Wars get meddled with the way that it has, because it's really sad, because there's so much rich lore and story that they could have used to really, enrich this entire universe moving
Yeah.
forward.
It's almost
Uh,
like they choose people who either don't know about Star Wars, but they just want to write, and or really don't like the franchise at all and just kind of want to see what they can fuck up.
no, what they do is they go, hey, you wrote that movie, or you wrote and directed that movie, and we thought that was pretty cool and original. You want to do a Star Wars film? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Instead of being like, okay, who's gonna be, and I'm sorry to say it this way, but who's gonna be the Kevin Feige of Star Wars? We need to find one person that's gonna.
That's Favreau.
It is now, but when we first started this whole sequel trilogy
Mhm.
bullshit, it wasn't
Oh,
Kathleen Kennedy,
yeah,
because obviously it wasn't,
it
because
was.
she didn't have a clue on how to craft and sculpt this Star Wars universe. She needed somebody
Yeah.
there, and I don't think Filoni was in a position at that point where he was able to even do that.
I'm sure
Like, you
that
had
he
to
didn't
find
have
somebody.
that type of respect from the that regime, I guess.
From the First Order.
From the first final order.
The final
Um,
order.
But yeah,
I
I don't
don't
think
want to
he.
see Kylo Ren die. I
Oh,
just want to see him lose. It was like, oh.
yeah, I was
I
like,
felt like I was watching Harry Potter when I saw that. I was like, all right, this is like a
Harry
Potter.
Potter.
I was like, this is getting dumb. Like,
Yeah,
Harry Potter, you can get away with that. Star Wars could not. It was like, dude, what are you doing? How? Why? Why are we going
What a
this route?
delivery! I mean, I'm sorry, but it was the same delivery that he had when he was, talking to the troops in the first one, where he was like, "The First Order," and he was just like,
He was like,
screaming.
channel your inner Hitler, and
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
pretty much.
Well, because he wanted him to seem like a tyrant, and I get
Yeah,
that.
but the thing is that it's kind of like he was scrawny, and he was not imposing, and he was not. He just wasn't. Like if you want to have somebody command the respect and stuff like that, then you hire somebody like Gary Oldman, or you hire somebody that like it when they deliver that
he
line,
was
you're
too
like,
young. He was too young.
he was too young to be that type of influential
Justin?
officer. What's up, Justin? Yeah, but I agree. He's way too young, and that was one of the problems that I can understand that people have with like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Too young, just doesn't have that gravitas, doesn't have that wisdom from just being older. And like, okay, you've been through it, you understand it, you have a better idea of what the fuck you're talking about. And it was just like, no, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put you in some imperial fatigues, and I'm gonna have you, like you said, channel your inner Hitler.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they were going for there, and
It didn't work
it's
for
too
me.
bad.
It didn't work for me.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, cool. When he was doing it, I was like, I don't. The problem was that at the time I didn't know enough about General Hux. I didn't fear him. I didn't really respect him. I really just didn't know who he was, and he
Yeah.
was just kind of running his mouth. And it was
Well,
well,
it's like look at Ahsoka. You've got Ray Stevenson, and he's older, and he commands performance, right? You don't have that with this dude from Harry Potter. You just don't. He doesn't have that. I mean, I'm sorry, cast Idris Elba in that role, and he'd give you a better Hux.
I think that they were so eager to introduce newer, younger characters that they overlooked, that aspect.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah. Well, his character was actually one of the more unique characters of the sequel trilogy. Like if you look at Rey, Rey is sort of an amalgamation of Leia and Luke. You look at Oscar Isaac's character, forget his fucking name. He's more of a Luke and Han persona, and then you look at Poe Dameron. And then you look at Finn, and he's sort of a Luke and Leia again. He's just that kind of character. All they did was just sort of shuffle him around a little bit, give him a little bit different background, and spit him right back out. And they were like, "Hey, here you go, same characters."
But see, again, you have three characters, and there's no type of like, for instance, I felt like Ray and Poe could have made like a better couple than. But then they said, okay, well, we want to do the whole Ray and Kylo, okay, and I get that, okay, fine.
Well, that's because the fans were clamoring for that. That's the only reason.
Well, and that's the thing is that there wasn't really a plan in place. It was always in flux.
And when they put it in Rise of Skywalker, it felt forced, and it felt like it was shoehorned, and it felt unnatural.
Everything about that film felt unnatural. The fact that they were riding horses on the side of a Star Destroyer, you know what I mean?
I guess natural.
They weren't in space; they were just high in the orbit. So I guess I don't know how.
Yeah, the horses were like, "Oh, the air's really thin up here."
I know. I'm gonna pass out.
Hey, I'm gonna pass out. Where's the peanut butter?
And then Finn met the other girl.
On that planet,
the black chick,
the one planet that you had to hold the key on this specific place at this specific time, and it was crash landed in water, and I guess it could move, but you had to hold it. It reminded me of the fucking Goonies, where it was like
ridiculous.
Or
even the fact that
it made more sense in the Goonies.
When Lando shows up, they're like, "What are you doing here?"
He's like, "I left my
Luke and I had come here to look for the dagger." I wanted to be like, "Wait." When I saw it, I was like, "Wait, so you telling me this motherfucker's been here the entire time trying to find this fucking dagger?" And they show up and they're like, "Oh, look, there's that ship we've been looking for on top of a cliff, just sitting there." It was kind of like, wait, so you couldn't find that?
Quick, the next scene. There's a worm, and Rey's gonna heal it. It's a new power.
God.
It's a new power.
And when she was able to heal, I was like, "What are we doing right now, dude?
I asked that back in episode 7. What are we doing? So
it was just like, what is going on?
What are we still doing?
And this is the problem: is that there wasn't a proper construction of a universe.
Yeah.
So now, for Gavin, now we go back to Ahsoka. Okay. So now we go back to the 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and now you have a chance to kind of rewrite history. Now you have a chance
to let Dave Filoni
to let Dave Filoni create a history to the sequel trilogy to help enrich that sequel trilogy to make it right. Okay,
that's always been the plan. That's why they have not highlighted the sequel trilogy since.
They haven't, because they know they fucked up. They absolutely know that they fucked up. There's no way you can't realize, like, yeah, that
the sequel trilogy is the new prequels, but the prequels have been embraced. The sequel trilogy, and there's been people that are like, oh yeah, you give it time, people will like it. It's not aging well at all, and the only way that you can get anybody to like that shit is if you're doing what Dave Filoni's doing and trying to fix things post, like George used to say, I will fix it in post. That's what Filoni's trying to do inadvertently, and I don't think it can be fixed. I think there are certain aspects of it that could be helped, but like the Knights of Ren,
waste.
The fucking guards, they already tried that. The guards from your favorite movie, Last Jedi, the Praetorian guards, they showed up in Mandalorian season 3. Didn't enrich anything at all. It was just it was like, hey, can we get some connective tissue in there? That was it, and it didn't.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you,
we don't care.
That's what it was. It was like, man, I don't give a shit. And then you had Moff Gideon showing up in like a shitty Iron Man suit, like, I have a mask on. Let me go ahead and take that off.
Let me take it off. Yeah, it's like he wore it for all of 2 seconds. It's like
he wore it for 2 seconds.
I need to fly from there to there, and I'm gonna have a helmet on, but I'm gonna take it off immediately so that you'll know who I am.
He took it off and was like,
"Does he look like a bitch?"
And then, okay, this is what gets me. Okay, so Brandon Davis over from, what does he do? Comicbook.com or whatever. Fucking, this really pissed me off when I saw this shit. So he posted this. He says, Ahsoka introducing a new galaxy to Star Wars has me begging for them not to do a multiverse story with Anakin or anyone else if we ever got to it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
There's a lot of words in there. I see a hashtag and a pretty picture.
A multiverse story
But
with Anakin.
the problem
Why
is that
fuck
dude, you
would they do
got
that?
5.6K likes. So there's 5.6K people out there who actually felt like they knew what he was talking about or
Not only that,
understood
but
that.
6.3 million people saw this post.
Well, millions of people saw it and were like, "The fuck is this?" and left.
The problem I have with this tweet is that this is what the Doomcocks and the Mike Zeros and the grifters, this is how they cash in on fans. Is they go, Dave Filoni is developing a multiverse story where now we're going to see Anakin Skywalker come back to life in a different universe. You're going to get the sequel trilogy redone by George Lucas. Now, like this kind of dumb shit, this is what leads to grifters taking advantage of fans who want a certain narrative. And when they start hearing the narrative, they start buying into it and hoping that it happens. What's up, Keely Chow?
What up?
And so this is why I had a problem with this tweet. And I did repost this by saying, why would they ever create a multiverse story with Star Wars? Why would they want to do that?
Well, it's not that anybody wants to. It's just that's sort of the thing, sort of the fad. So he's just trying to say, hey, Star Wars multiverse, possibly.
It's dumb.
Yeah, it's dumb.
It's dumb. You don't want to do that. And so that's why I was like, dude,
Yeah.
don't do that. Don't do multiverse Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, just keep it where it's at.
Multipass.
So going to Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Anakin Skywalker at the end of Ahsoka, and it looked like he may have pulled her into the world between worlds. And, this is a place that we saw in Rebels. In fact, this is how Ahsoka is alive, is because when she fought Darth Vader in Rebels, Darth Vader was going to kill her. Like he had her beat. And then before she was struck down, well, essentially she was struck down, but before she was struck down, Ezra Bridger pulled her through and brought her into the world between worlds. And that's how she lived from that attack or from that battle. And then they left there, and that's how she exists now. I thought she never died, even though I don't know where she was at during Return of the Jedi and all that shit. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But I mean, and now we see Anakin Skywalker there, which, to be honest, I don't think it's actually Anakin. I think it's something else, maybe a vision or whatnot. Because how can Anakin be there? His physical form, he's dead, and it wasn't like, oh, he fell down a pit, and then somebody pulled him through. No, that didn't happen. Like, he died in front of Luke Skywalker on the Death Star before it blew up.
Yeah, he's not a Force ghost.
Tell your sister you were right.
You were right about me.
And then what did they do? They re-released a new version where it's Hayden Christensen's face saying, tell your sister. I was like, no, why would you do that? That's too far. It's too much.
They removed his eyebrows. They were like, those eyebrows are too bushy.
Yeah, they would have got it singed anyway with the flames. And the lava.
What were they thinking in the 80s?
So
they don't have fireworks.
So we'll see what the story goes. I'm fully hooked on Ahsoka. This is the show that I was hoping to get, and we got it, and I'm really loving it. But the fact that they're going to put this next episode and they're going to screen some of these in theaters, I feel like, man, they're gonna do something. I feel like you're about to get a lot of fucking cameos coming up.
I think it's just to create awareness.
But it can't just be a regular episode. It has to be something where when it's over, everybody's like, holy shit, that was fucking crazy. And it can't just be Anakin showing up at the end. It has to be something else.
Well, he already did that.
Right. And I think what it's going to be is it's going to have something to do with Luke Skywalker. I think he is going to be in this. But then again, we've already seen him twice.
I don't think
3
you can
times.
have Luke and Anakin in the same show at the same time. Because you left off with Anakin at the end of this one. He's not going to be like not there for this next one.
No, he's going to be in it. But is he going to be in the show moving forward? I think he'll just be in this episode.
Yeah, but that's the episode that's going to be on the big screen. Is
Right.
the one with Anakin, not Luke.
I do think that Luke is going to have a part to play in the story when it comes to Heir of the Empire. We know that Thrawn comes back. We fucking seen him on, still images of him and videos of him, on the show. So we know that he gets there. And he's going to, he is the heir of the Empire. He is going to assume control of the Empire and wage war against the New Republic.
So he's Snoke.
No, he's not. Now, I think Chuck has a good. Chuck has it right here with Chuck saying, I think it's going to be a flashback episode dealing with Anakin and Ahsoka. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in this episode you have a chance to see a full-on progression of their time together, and I think you're going to get I think this episode is finally the episode you get the flashback that everyone wants to see, which is the two of them fighting in the Clone Wars. I think you're going to get that scene in this next episode. Because there has to be a big enough payoff in this episode where you said, fuck, I wish I would have seen it on the big screen. Like, I totally missed out on this. I had my chance. This is going to, this was badass.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the midway point. Not even that. I want to say there's 8 episodes? 9 maybe? And so essentially this is like the midway point. And so this is going to be something big. It has to be. I don't understand how it can't be if you're going to screen it in theaters. It'd be one thing if they were saying, hey, the finale, we're going to put that in the theater for an hour-long episode. Oh, cool, sure. It's the finale. They're going to go balls out. But this is the midway point. This is episode 5.
Well, there's nobody to say that they're not going to do that.
What do you mean?
The finale. You just found out about this episode. Who's to say that they're not going to put the finale in theater?
Who knows? But that's a lot of money to spend if you're gonna start putting every fucking episode in the theater.
Let's do it. Let's get people back out.
This is how we get people back. Seats.
This is how it starts. The rage.
What's this? It says what the next episode is going to be in theaters. Just one or the last ones.
I think so far it's just the one.
It's just that one. It's just that one that we know of. But the character Shin, I know you're not a huge fan of Shin.
Shin,
with
who's
the
Shin?
White hair, the apprentice.
Oh yeah, with the bowl cut.
When she has bangs, but
it doesn't matter.
When they
looks like she's wearing a helmet.
Okay, so when
her and Sabine are fighting, like I said earlier, if you guys didn't catch it, it's hilarious when they stop to talk to Ahsoka. They're like, hold on, let's pause the fight.
She would have been like, force pull, stab you, you're dead. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, but like when I don't know his name, but what is his name in the show?
Ray Stevenson?
Yeah, what's his name in the show?
Isn't it like Balin, Darth Balin?
Balin, there you go, Balin.
Yeah, Balin.
So when Balin is talking to Sabine, why didn't he just force pull the damn ball? She's not a force user. Just
I don't know.
I got it.
I was like
that could have been easy. Like, we don't need you. We don't need to turn you either.
Maybe he does need her and we don't know about it yet. But I mean,
yeah. I mean, he tossed Ahsoka off the ledge. He figured her for dead. So, he doesn't really need her. And from the way he's talking, it's like he knows Ezra's available to be found or seen or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, I just would have force pulled it. Like, okay, I got it. I don't really need you. I'm a force user, midichlorians. We're going to finish the map. But yeah, it just, and then what was also funny is like when they first got out of the ship, when the droids are fighting and Ahsoka and Sabine get out of the ship and they start, Sabine starts fucking like rolling around. I was like, okay, so you're just going to like do somersaults outside, just jump all over the fucking. Okay,
It was a little silly.
It was a little
like,
much.
Why are we outside the ship? You know what I mean?
It's kind of like that one little pose that they did in the Book of Boba Fett when that one guy like did the tumble or the flip or whatever, like unnecessarily shooting. It's like all flash and no flare, you know, or whatever. It's just like
it was just very unnecessary. It was like, what are we doing?
And I'm like,
why are we doing this?
Come on, dude. Let's, I'm all for like cool shots and shit, but not at the expense of like silliness. But for the most part, like I said, the episode was fun, but mainly because it was more action. There were some scenes where you have the Hera girl with her son in the ship, and they're flying around with the X-wing pilots and stuff, and they're not really doing much. There's no dogfights or anything like that.
I mean, they could have. I knew they weren't going to, but like they could have killed them off right then and there.
Disney is not going to kill a kid.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, if they would have went into hyperspace and just wiped them out.
Wipe them out.
I thought that's what was going to happen. I was like, they have a chance to fucking make a huge statement right now and just fucking kill off Hera and her son and those and the other.
Disney is too safe. They won't do that.
Because that's what I'm saying. They have their limitations and what they can do. This is on Disney Plus.
It's on Disney Plus, and they're like highlighting, like, I don't know. I understand that there are witches in the universe, but it's kind of weird that there are witches in the universe. I'm like, okay, so I mean, I know that Ian McKay back in the day in the prequels was like drawing a Sith witch, right? And it was, but that thing was fucking scary looking. This girl over here looks like she's straight from the damn Jedi Archive library. I'm sorry.
It's not into the archives and it doesn't exist. Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah.
What's up, Prima?
What's up?
It's like
she doesn't look like a threat. She's not imposing. It's just like, what are we doing here? And why is she a witch? Who gives a fuck?
Just wait till Order 66 happens. You won't be fucking so smug then. The Jedi's will stop you. Well, go.
Lisa back. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, this episode's better than the other ones, but that's not really saying much because the other ones, in my opinion, were very boring and bland. I didn't find them very interesting at all. They were just kind of there. They just kind of happened. So this was the one episode that I can say it was actually interesting, but mainly because it was progressing the story, but it also had action.
Right.
And yeah.
So we'll see how this plays out. We'll see if I end up going to the screening because I got to get there early. It's quite the ways to go, so I may or may not be able to go.
It's a 4-hour trip.
If I do, I will make sure to send images and pictures and
you got to document everything.
Document the whole thing. There's a storm coming, Annie. Better get inside. Okay, so let's talk about this. Back in the 90s, you set out to make a fan film. It was going to be called Rising Threat. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Rising Threat was supposed to be and how far you got with this project?
Sure. Well, yeah, no. So, back right when episode 1 had aired or been released or whatever, there was a surge of people who wanted to create films, because they just had that. I mean, you watched George, you had that bug. And then there was a website, force.net. I was a frequent user there, and I knew the webmaster, Scott Chitwood. He's a local guy here, and they used to have something on their site called TFN Films, and that was just basically where you could upload your personal Star Wars related projects, whether it be 3D animation or if it was, just a short, or something, like a skit, something funny. There was something called like, Star Wars Gangster Rap. And, there's a lot of stuff on there. And there was a couple things that came out that I saw. One was called like Star Wars Nightfall. And there was another one, not Night Quest. And that one really intrigued me because it used, at the time we didn't have 3D printers. So, if you wanted a Star Wars costume or whatnot, you would have to make it. You'd have to build it. You'd have to vacuum form it. You'd have to do it all on your own.
Mhm.
And, you couldn't just, you could buy kits, but they weren't very good and they weren't very accurate because people, for the most part, a lot of them were just, casting from sculpts. And then sometimes, you would get, people that have sculpts that were actually based off of or from a negative sculpt from the actual film. And you can get like a true, stormtrooper or, Darth Vader, kit or whatever, and you can put it together yourself and all that. And it was all, it was very nice. It was all really cool. And there weren't a lot of people that were doing it because it wasn't widespread. Not everybody had the material. Not everybody had the access to do all that. And, and thank you. And yeah, so it was a very small group of people that would make films, and it was just for fun. You couldn't make any money off of it. Lucasfilm would come and stomp on you if you tried to pay anybody on the project. If you tried to solicit funds for the project, even to get help donating money or whatever, you couldn't do anything for because Lucasfilm would say, hey, you know what? You're making money or you're acquiring money from the Lucasfilm brand. And so I had the idea to just kind of come up with my own Star Wars film. And I wanted to do it on my own. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to go balls deep. I'm just going to fucking make a full-length feature film, which, ultimately didn't happen. I started back in 2000 after episode 1 had released, before episode 2 came out. And I started working on a script, and then I wrote a screenplay, and I started acquiring a lot of people all over the all over the internet, that were just, like I said, it was a small group of people, but they were from all over the world, and
that's incredible too, that there was that many people involved because everyone wanted to do Star Wars.
Yeah, so there weren't that many people that could do what I did, which ultimately, if I'd completed it, it would have really kind of, pushed through the idea that you could accomplish this thing all over the internet. And I had people in Japan, in Switzerland, in Germany, in Australia.
Wow.
Just all over, in the US.
Droga.
Axel Droga. He was probably still swimming around his parents' dinghy when I was making that. Well, he had to have been. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a full-length feature. And so I set out to do so. So I started getting people on board that were concept. I had concept art. I drew it on my own. I accomplished wonders. But I got 3D artists because there was a sci-fi 3D forums was on TFN, or was on theforce.net. So I started talking to people there and said, hey, I had a lot of people that worked in different software. Some worked in Lightwave, some worked in Maya, some worked in 3D Studio Max. If you know any of those, if you've heard of any of those, then that was sort of the standard. Today, there's probably different software. There's ZBrush and all kinds of other stuff that you can use now. That 3D models today, you can make simple, easy, quick, and it's a lot more accessible and a lot more cheap. A lot of people that I would get in touch with or whatever, they had to pay hundreds of dollars for the software, and either they were working in television. I had one guy working for Sony, so he did a lot of stuff for like Ice Age and all that, and you had I had people working in games, LucasArts, EA Sports, a lot of people working on the developing the models for those types of games and shit. So, but they were Star Wars fans, and so they would do it for free. So I didn't have to pay him. And that was one of the stipulations from Lucasfilm. You can't pay anybody. So I was like, okay, you don't get paid, but I'll promote you, and so I did. I made my own forum. I posted things on the internet, just kind of, raise awareness. Some people got other jobs. I don't want to say it was because of me, but, I helped facilitate, I gave them projects to work on, which helped hone in and sharpen their skills. And so at the time, this was before HD cameras were available on the market for purchase. You could rent it, but I wanted to own it. I wanted to own my own camera so that I could do my own thing. And so I created a green screen in my garage, and I put, I got the chroma key paint. I painted the whole garage, did all that, and I did it to where it was on the ceiling, it was on the walls, it was on the ground, it was everywhere. And what I didn't realize at the time was that, I had sort of made a box. Well, when the lights shine, they sort of give off a reflection. And as you can see here, it doesn't really key that great if it's not evenly lit, or if you have a lot of spill, then, you'll sort of, not, if there was green on me, it would be transparent and all that. So I didn't think of that. Right. And so, but George was working primarily in green screen. So I was like, you know what? I'll just do what George does. Green is great for digital. I'll just do green screen and I'll just let my imagination go. And so I went over to the high school for performing and visual arts. I got students there involved that were into, Star Wars. I got into their film, did some stuff and kind of saw how they, their process and all that was. And then I got into, I got the principal to play my Emperor. And I had a good cast. I also had another person for the lead, and she was great. I worked with her on another project or whatever. And at the end of the day, like my first day of actual, filming, she didn't show. She was a no-show. So I had to step in and take the title role. And I didn't want to, but I was like, you know what? No one else is more reliable than me because I'm always going to be there. So I might as well just do it. And I had a costume because I was going to play a smaller, minor role. So I already had a Jedi robe or whatever. And so
this had to affect the script a bit, right?
Not that much, because when I wrote it, I didn't write it specifically for a male or a female. There wasn't anything in there that was like, oh, well, a female has to play this or a male has to play that. I just had to change some dialogue here and there, pronouns, I guess, whatever. And that was kind of it. And so, I had that done. I had people, I'd drawn some things out, some concept art of some of the ships and everything that I wanted. And I had people, working on that. So what I would do is I would take some of the renders and kind of show it off to other people, sort of get them interested and excited about like, hey, what I'm doing is not your typical Star Wars film. Like there was a lot of Star Wars 3D models out there of Star Destroyers, AT-ATs, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, of course, all that. I didn't want any of that shit. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make something unique. I'm going to make something different. I'm going to make something you've never seen before. So it makes it a little bit more special and interesting. And it's not just another random Star Wars render of a TIE fighter fighting an X-Wing or whatever. And it's different. And so I was like, okay, well, the sequel trilogy is going, or the prequel trilogy is going on. And Scott from the site had enlisted me to draw out some of the concept art that he had got from episode 2. And I put that on the site for them. And that was really fun, of Count Dooku's ship and the clone troopers, what they looked like and everything. So if you saw that, if you ever, were into Star Wars back then when it was first coming out, and you happened to, go on theforce.net and you saw those preview images of the Acolyte and the troopers and Count Dooku's ship. And I think there was another one that I did. That was me. That was my art, and I put that out there to help them out because they couldn't put it out there because Lucasfilm would shut it down. But if it was an artist rendering of it, then they can't really say anything or couldn't really do anything. And so that's how we kind of got around that. And so I got I got a cast together of I got some people that were already making films, and they just happened to be in Texas, and I was like, you know what, I've got a lot of people now. This is very it was very simple. I got somebody else that also lived in Texas that was uh, uh the costume designer. She had a lot of costumes that she used at Comic-Con, conventions. And so I had access to pilot outfits. The X-wing pilot outfit, and
Oh wow.
and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and so I'd made my own, and I would. There used to be these helmets that were called DP poster, or God, I can't remember what they were, but they were the old helmets that you would have to buy at like a Halloween store of like the stormtroopers and different things like that. And so I bought a couple of things that were, sort of the right proportion. A lot of the stuff was smaller. Like if you bought a Boba Fett mask or a Boba Fett helmet, it was smaller. It was, it wasn't as grandiose. It wasn't as big as, or the right dimensions as what you would have seen, Jeremy Bullock wearing on screen, or even, Tamora Morrison. So, I was fortunate to find people that could help me out. And so I took it upon myself. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own trooper, because this is going to, my story kind of took place 30 years after in Return of the Jedi. And I was like, you know what would happen then? What would these characters look like? What would things, sort of progress to? And so like, this is one of the things that I made out of ABS. And so this was the TIE Fighter pilot helmet. And so I made it a little bit more smooth. I gave it sort of a smaller snout to make it look different than the TIE Fighter helmet that was basically just an X-wing helmet, and a stormtrooper helmet fused. So I gave it this. I put the little stripes on it like the clone troopers. Mm-hmm. I gave it a dorsal fin, but it doesn't really, do anything in the back. But yeah, so this is sort of what I made, and I made them. I made two of them, and I made the whole outfit. The pilots only had the helmet, and they had the pilot, sort of fatigues, and then they had the white, I guess, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like an apron. And then they had the little box, on their chest. And then we had a hose hooked up, to the snout. And that was my TIE Fighter pilot right there. And we made a 3D model of him and all that we could put inside the 3D models for like close-up shots and things like that. So, but that took a long time because, I had sculpted it myself. I sculpted it out of, hard clay. The clay was very smelly. I didn't mind the smell, but it really does get everywhere and really does smell. It's very potent. I think I forgot. I think it was like number 5, which is a certain thickness or hardness of the clay. But yeah, so I did that. I made the whole trooper outfit. And my troopers, it's actually kind of funny. My troopers are actually called Sith troopers, and they were red, which was before J.J. Abrams made his. So I'm like, did somebody work with me and like they took that idea or concept and kind of mentioned it and somebody else, kind of ran with it or whatever when the Rise of Skywalker came out? Because when I saw that shit on the screen, I was like, no shit, no way. And what was funny was that, Rey, her character was the main protagonist. I had a female character for mine for the main protagonist, and that was sort of, well, yeah, there's your Sith trooper right there, but that's from the film. Mm-hmm. And let me see here. I'll show you mine real quick.
Hashtag Sith Trooper Gate.
Share screen. Let's see. Window. Entire screen window. Can I choose it? Where is it?
The tab you can, or a screen.
Oh, did I closed it out? No, I didn't. It's right there. Hold on. That's interesting. Why?
So there it is.
One. Okay.
That was the one when you saw it, you were like, holy shit. What the fuck?
I was like, how did that happen? Basically. Hold on, let me shorten that up. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to
Did you go
present.
scouring through the credits? Like somebody in there I had to know.
So here you go. Well, so here you
All
go. It's the same helmet. I sculpted it once, and basically, I was like, hey, this is my trooper. So that was my Sith trooper. That was our,
And they
that's
were
what
all red.
they were, completely red. And so I did some other ones. Here's a different, closer shot of, if you look at, like the little detail here, that's the little rivet, that sort of connects the chest.
Right.
The stormtroopers had, some other parts, but I wanted mine to be a little bit more sleek. And that's why, like, my chest doesn't have a divot, in the middle,
in the middle.
and it doesn't have the ridges on the sides, or you have to put it on the forearms, because that's how it connects onto your forearm. But I just wanted to look sleek, a little bit more sleek, but still have that trooper sort of look. And then we had variations. Now this is a 3D representation of it, but we had different variations. This was the symbol here was the new symbol for the Empire, which was starkly different. And then we had this was when episode 3 came out. This was after I was finished filming. We had taken a 3D rendering of the helmet and just added some different things to it. And then this was another variation, and we were gonna do kind of like what are they called, the shore troopers, and just kind of have different troopers kind of there.
And,
And
mind you, this is, what year was this?
That was 2005, 4. That was in 2004, because that's when we'd start getting things from episode 3. Because I started the project before episode 2 came out, and we were still working on it through. And this was a big, huge project, big undertaking. I was, I want to say I was a little bit too ambitious. I was young. I was in my 20s. I was like, it's ride or die. I'm going to get this done or not. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that I did that I'm really proud of this thing, even though it didn't get finished. And I shot it on 480p, which is really, really small resolution compared to 8K. Yeah. So and I was like, yeah, I could show this in theaters.
I mean, and for anyone who wants to know what, like, 480p, that's like your standard resolution for your standard DVD.
Yeah.
Like your regular DVDs are 480p is the maximum it can do. Blu-rays can do 720p and 1080p and 4K and so on and so forth.
And this was back then. You had to get the camera that I had. It had tapes.
Yeah, it was cassette tapes. Right?
It was cassette. It was a small cassette tape. And then what you had to do, you had to take the cassette tape, hook it up to your computer, and then you had to capture the video.
So you literally have to play it back and let
you have to play it back,
capture it as it plays back.
And I had to capture, and I captured every take that I did. And unless it was like really, really bad.
I mean, like, you do a scene and they go, cool, let me go capture this, and then everyone have to wait around. Like,
no. I would shoot everything. I had dozens of tapes.
Oh, you got a lot of them. Okay.
I had a lot of tapes. So I transferred them all over to CD.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the CDs that I have that are completely full of footage.
Wow.
And so, this is, I mean, that's my movie right there. These are, it's raw footage as well as Adobe Adobe Premiere files. And so, yeah, it's just, it was a huge, huge undertaking. And I shot everything. There's some, I did pickups. I did redo a lot of scenes. Those are great. The bulky glass TVs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
On your tube television, it would look amazing.
It would look amazing. It would look, fantastic. But I would have projected it, and all that.
Right.
But anyway,
But still, I mean, even to this day, I've told Ryan several times that we should make a trailer out of the footage you shot just to do it some justice.
it would be fun. It'd be fun. I working on a different project now, and once that project's over, if it does what I'm hoping it'll do, it may free up me some time later on. Because I mean, the footage is always there. I always have the files, and that's one thing that I can kind of hold on to for right now is that the files are still viable. But yeah, so I shot everything. I got so many people out. I shot outdoors. I shot indoor. I shot at the high school on their sound stage.
Wow.
I shot a lot of stuff, and it was really good. I had a pretty good story. It was very typical Star Wars. I didn't want to deviate too much, but it was two Jedi running, or it started off with two Jedi running from a Sith, and the Sith Lord had his own apprentice, but he also had an Emperor that he spoke with, and the Emperor knew of the Sith's apprentice, and he sort of went behind the Sith Lord's back and tried to apprentice his apprentice, and so you have that rule of two or whatever, and so there was a really good exchange in the film where it's like, okay, you see the betrayal. They all betrayed. They've all backstabbed each other, and it's pretty awesome. And then the two Jedi, they're just kind of like they're just doing their thing, whatever. It's mainly just how do we take out this threat or whatever within, and it's self-contained. They go down, they get shot down from to a planet. They try to find a way off of the planet, just like they do with Han Solo. You meet up with an alien, much like Jabba the Hutt, but his name is Rosh Tarn, and he's this big like ape creature and all that. And he he doesn't really help them off, but they steal his ship, or they steal somebody else's ship, and they chase him. And I don't know, it was fun, dude. It was a fun little project. And so yeah, so then we shot everything. We did some edits of the live footage, and I want to say 90% of the film is green screen, so I was having to key out everything. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to worry about building sets and stages and all that. I'm going to just kind of do like George and just kind of let it go, and let the green screen, help tell my story.
Well, and on top of that, if you have the crew of guys who want to do the CG, essentially, as long as you had the motion captured, they could just create around what you have. And so it's like, it's like, okay, well, I have a team working on this, so we go scene by scene and we kind of go.
So let me show this. So this is kind of, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about. Like,
we were young Ryan.
We were replacing the background, but not completely, because if you look, it's oversaturated in the background on this top layer. And so I was like, you know what? I didn't really get the forest look that I wanted to get. I was like, so I had a team come in and they were helping me to key out some of the features. Because mainly these were a lot of static shots. There were some moving shots, but this was like, I think this one was a static shot. There's another one right here. This is a static shot. So if you look at the top, this guy had to rotospline around me. If you look at the bottom, if you look at my hand right here, you can see kind of it's a little bit off. But I mean, this was a test. Excuse me. This was a test. So and that was my Jedi outfit. It was sort of a dark navy blue with a maroon.
Those sideburns, though, man.
Well, I wanted to give him a different look.
Oh, that was one of the look.
No, that was my normal look. I had to wear this hairdo for like a year. A year. I had to keep my sideburns the exact same. I had to trim it every single time, dude. And it was a whole year until finally I was like, I'm done with my scenes. I can cut my hair. Because I wanted them to look like they belonged in this other world, right? Nobody, I mean, I guess some people wear that, but back then I was like, you know what? Nobody has the long hair and the sideburns and just kind of look like that. I was like, that's fucking Jedi. That's a Jedi right there, right? And so I'm happy with the way that turned out. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things that I have here to show you, and I do have some stuff on my YouTube channel. If you guys want to check it out, I have a lot of animations on there, and I have some of that as well, where you can see some of our test shots. But yeah, I mean, it's it was fun. It was a fun experience, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'd love to have completed it back then. I think if I had, a lot of things would have been different for me. Obviously, I think it was definitely something. I don't think it would have been groundbreaking, but I definitely think that it would have turned a lot of more heads, just because of the different things that I had in the film that were different. Like for example, I'll bring this. Where'd it go? Did you take it off?
No, I haven't touched it.
Okay, let me go back.
I think you took it off.
Yeah. I may have taken it off. Okay, so I'm going to add that back. Okay, so I'm going to add this, and here we go. So this is one of the Royal Guards. Where is, like, if you saw in episode 1, they had the blue guard, and of course episode 6 you had the red ones. And I was like, well, fuck, let's just go green. RGB. And so I was like, let me make it to where he's just a little bit more imposing. And so
I think so.
This was here's a close up of the helmet. The visor had a little bit more seeing space here, and it was sort of a green visor, and I wanted to make him look like like the other ones. The episode 1, they had
the faces exposed.
Yes,
episode 1.
They had the faces exposed. Episode 6, they just had this one slit. And for mine, I wanted to have the fin back, and then I cut some slits down here for more visibility, and to make it look a little bit different, because I'm sorry, the episode 3 ones, episode 1 ones, those look pretty much the same. They just have that the face showing, and sort of they have that little thing in the front. So like I said, I just wanted to make it a little bit different, and this is the outfit as a whole,
right?
So
see, and this is some of the issues that I have with the current sequel trilogy, is that you made the changes to not only the craft, but to their uniforms, their suits, to show a progression in how these things change over time. When it comes to the sequel trilogy, you saw the same shit. You saw X-Wings. You saw the same ships have been flying around for fucking 60 years. And you're like, dude,
yeah,
there's got to be new ships. And then obviously in Ahsoka, we see the E-Wing, which we hadn't seen anywhere else. It was kind of like, why wasn't that in the sequel trilogy? They should have had more E-Wings flying around.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been different. It should have been more interesting. Like here's a ship. Let me see. I guess
that's a stormtrooper. Okay,
hold on. Let me go through here. Hold on. Okay, so this is the back or rear of one of our TIE fighters, and it's a tri-wing. It has a dorsal fin as well as these two and if you look at it, the shape is more sleek.
Yeah,
the shape is more it looks aggressive. and it has more boosters on it, where the TIE fighter has the little
two little ones,
right? The two boosters, and I think that's why they're called TIE fighters. I forget TIE. I forget what that's what they stand for, but I just I got that. And then let's see, what's this one? Oh, okay, so this is one of the locations. It's a cave system. And you never really saw that in Star Wars. So I was like, every time you go into Star Wars, you see some new terrain, you see some new place that is interesting and all that. And so that's kind of what we did here. We sort of created a different setting that normally you wouldn't have seen. Like you got Hoth. That is sort of inside a cave, but it was covered with snow. Whereas just something with rock, and we had a scene in here where there was an explosion, and part of the cave collapses and water rushes in, and everybody's got to get out before all the ships and everything are kind of get destroyed inside the cavern. This is our Star Destroyer, and as you can see here as well, on the back it's curved,
Yeah, I like
and
that.
on the front it's curved, and on the very front it doesn't come to a point, it's curved, and then there's like a little slit. I don't you'll have to forgive me for not getting a whole lot of images, because I don't have access to a lot of the stuff that I used to, just due to some of the stuff's on old computers, and some of the stuff I didn't keep. Some of the stuff that was on an old forum that we had. I had an old forum that everybody kind of like collaborated and just kind of threw their art up, and that also helped generate a lot of people's interest. From the different artists to sort of like encourage each other to like, oh wow, that looks great. Well, here's what I did, and this guy right here, he did a fantastic job, way better. Like he went back and added all these different details and stuff, and you can get pretty close to the model before it starts looking.
Seeing this when he showed you these images, this had to have been like, holy shit, fuck yeah.
Yeah, and because I was like, you know what, it back then I said it's coming together. This thing is happening. And let me show you. So I had here they are. Here are my pilots. They're and that was my green screen as well. There I had a lady pilot. I had it wasn't a Rhodian, but it was blue. It was a kind of a blue Rhodian. And yeah, so I mean, it was and all these guys are fantastic. This guy actually played two parts. He was also the like whatever species that Savage Opress and Darth Maul are. He was the same, but he was a Jedi, so he had blue markings on his face, but it was like calm and peaceful. It wasn't like it was different. It was cool. This is one of our ships. And this was actually one of the pirate ships that was giving chase to our heroes, if you will. And this is the back of it.
Wow, look at that. So much detail in the thrusters, especially.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that is called it's called Nernies and Greebles. And it's just the exact same thing that they did or used, and that's kind of where it came from. Was when they did the Death Star trench, they took a lot of models, a lot of like battleship models and tank models and stuff like that, cannibalized them and put all those little things on there to make it look like they were something, and they spray painted everything and made it look like it was all part of it, and they lit it up with lights. So I mean, this thing, yeah, I really did like that drop shit. Now this is a shot of from the film, and this was the planet that my two Jedi that are over here are going to crash land on, and yeah, so there's that. This was inside the bay. Let me see, the docking bay for the Eclipse destroyer, and it's we wanted to make it look very industrial, but also we wanted to make it look very more a little bit more futuristic than what you saw in Return of the Jedi. And there it is with the shuttle. The shuttle also, it's got sort of a it's a little less angular and a little bit more sleek. This is a bottom shot of the model of where that what do you call it, that hangar is in. And so that's just it's lit up, and it's really I just really like the shot. Let's see, there's another ship that we were constructing, and it was just going to be in the background, but it was it was just another so here we go. So here's my my droid.
Oh, look at that.
So it's a little bit more sleek. The head, the little compartments are on the middle ridge, and the little eyeballs up here, the little
That is
that
fucking
viewing things
cool,
there. This is
man.
a little bit
I'd
more
never seen
sleek.
this one.
So his legs are a little bit more, rounded off.
Yeah.
His feet are a little bit more. So
Well-
this is the precursor to BB-8, if you will. It was just a little bit more sleek.
What was his name?
Huh?
What was the droid's name?
I wish I could tell you. It's been so long. I'm sorry. It's been too long. It's been too long. I know he had a name, but yeah, there were a lot of these, because all we had to do with this is just recolor him, and these were just in the background doing their thing, and this was a model, 3D model of me, and that's my lightsaber right there as well. No, I did not have electricity. They just took my 3D model and just kind of had some fun with it.
Right.
So this right here is another shot of that
Nice.
shuttle. Here's a side profile of it, so you can it's just a little bit more elongated, rounded again. And then this right here is let's see. Oh, and there it is in the bay, in the docking bay. So there's the ship, just to kind of give you a little bit of scale as far as like how big this thing was, or how big the ship was. This is our speeder biker. That's his helmet. He has the speeder bike snout, and he's got a little air intake there. This is his chest.
Wow.
And let's see. And so here he is in action.
Nice.
And so, we had a scene where, our heroes are riding on these speeder bikes, and they're being chased by these guys, as well as the Sith Lord, and he's on one. And we're just flying through that forest planet and all that. So this was, again,
awesome,
just one of those things where it looks really good and very convincing. And like I said, this is one of the things where I was like, you know what, this is the reason why it's going to look different than everybody else's stuff that's already out there, because it's got a little bit of something new
to it,
right? And so you never really saw this, like I said, in the sequel trilogy. This amount, they used a lot of the same stuff. They just kind of repurposed some things, colored it a little bit differently. And it wasn't very, I'm not saying that but if you look at this speeder bike, it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit longer than the ones that were used in Return of the Jedi. But you can still tell it's a speeder bike, and I mean, I'm like I said, with all the people here, like the guy that did this and a lot of the other things that you saw that you were really impressed with, his name is Andreas Jacobson, and he did some phenomenal work. There's some other guys, Mark Eland, Sean Kennedy, just Nigel Wakefield, a lot of really James Wood, a lot of Jeremy Kincaid, a lot of good artists, helped me out on this project, and even though it didn't get finished, I'm eternally grateful to them for everything that they did. I even had so here's my little ATST. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it does.
It's a little bit smaller, and it was just going to be in the city. It was just going to be kind of walking around doing this thing. This is another droid that we were working on. Again, it was a little bit sleeker and had, just a little bit different from your R2 units and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was just going to be a worker droid. This is the center console for one of my ships, and then this is the center console for the one that was crash landing onto the planet.
Okay,
yeah. Let's see. I saw that one. Show that one. Let's see. Up here. Okay, I think that's all of the photos that I have here. Yeah, so that's kind of it. But I mean, that's pretty much it. And then after I got, I was working on it or whatever, there were people that were still making their show, and I got on to this. So that somebody made a documentary of people that were making films and going to conventions and stuff like that, and I was interviewed on here. So
Oh wow.
that was fun. And the lady was great. Sky, her name was Sky, and she did really good work. And it was, I mean, it was sort of in a different time, where like anything felt like anything was possible. And so, as we were coming up with stuff, as we were putting, things together, and everything was kind of coming together, it was like, wow, we had so many more ideas and so many different things that we could have done, and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and all that. And it was great. Um, I lost one of the models, and I was going through some things in my life personally. But that's the only. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys this. So also, we were working on one of our ships, and we were making. Let's see. We were making a one to blow up, and so I had a guy here that he was that was my R wing, and as you can see, it's so much more sleek than than the X wings and and so I kind of used. I was like, okay, so Return of the Jedi had the A wing, right?
Right.
And I was like, let me, and on this ship here, the wings protrude forward, kind of like God, I forget those fighter jets, but yeah, they come out forward and sort of like at an angle, and that's how this one was. And I was like, that's how this could be fucking dope. That's how this could be different. So they would go on each side, and you have the droid back there behind the cockpit, and it was I wish we'd been able to finish this, but this guy was he was working on it. And I mean, again, great stuff. There was one more image that I didn't share, this one here, and this was another one of the ships that we concepted out, and it was a troop ship. And we were just going to have these things kind of land in the background, and like this was an early render. This was sort of a test render, but it was going to have a lot more detail on the bottom, and then we were going to have the cockpit to where you could see some of it. But that was sort of
so cool, dude.
Again, it's the same thing where it's showing, it's putting you have the angular shapes, but then you also have the rounded shapes. And I was like, let me make it look fucking more futuristic in a futuristic setting. So that's it in a nutshell from what I have here. Like I said, everything else you can see on my YouTube channel. If you go back to like the very first stuff that I was uploading, you guys can see it there, and drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I mean, I have the one of the first sequences, how the movie was supposed to start off. I have that on there. There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff on there. I mean, you and I have watched a bunch of it on that.
Oh yeah,
channel.
Yeah, many
if you dig
times.
deep enough, you'll find a whole bunch of videos on there.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, like you were just saying, I mean, that is Rising Threat in a nutshell. Guys, I want to thank Ryan. It's been almost 2.5 hours. We talked about Star Wars and a Rising Threat. One day we're going to get this thing, at least a trailer made of this
you know
project.
What? If you come over again, we can work on a weekend, and I can put it together for you to where you could at least see it.
Yeah.
Like
just a what do you call it? An assembly cut.
An assembly cut. I did that for myself, and it was watchable. It had no effects to it. I knew exactly what I would see here and there or whatever, but just following the story itself, following the characters, bad audio, all that, it's whirring in the background and all this other stuff or whatever, but just watching the cut, I was like, yeah, I could definitely see that this is still, it's solid. It might not have been, world renowned, well received, anything like that, but it was something that I was very proud of, and saying, you know what, I did my best.
Exactly. And we'll have to check that out. Guys, I want to thank everyone who came out here today. Venom Hernandez, Droga32.
Yep.
Also known as Axel Droga. Prima, Jamie, everyone, Gavin.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Follow the channel on Spotify, and also follow on YouTube podcasts as well. Obviously, I want to thank Ryan for coming on here and talking Star Wars with me. We've been talking about doing a Star Wars, episode where we just talk Star Wars for over 2 hours, and we did it, and I had such a great time doing it as well.
Yeah. So wait for episode 2.
Yeah. This will come after
The search for more money.
The search for more money. And guys, speaking of which, if you want to support the channel, do so by joining us, becoming a member of the channel, or joining us over on Patreon as well, which the link is down below. Ryan, thank you again for coming on here and talking to us about
Thanks for having me.
Your project Rising Threat, of course, and talking Star Wars, man.
It's great to be on the show. I mean, I've been a watcher for a long time. It's good to get to talk to you. I'm all giddy. I feel like such a fan.
That's totally. And what's this? Everyone's saying fire. So, guys, you never know. Any day now, you might see Rising Threat.
Any day. Hold your breath. There's a theater near you right after Ahsoka.
Yeah, you never know. All right, guys, that's all the time we have for tonight. I want to thank you guys for coming out. I will be live again, hopefully this Sunday. Where I'm going to have Tom from Cortex Zero on the show talking about some more UFO stuff. And then the week after that, I'm looking to get Jared from Comics League on here. We're going to be talking a little bit comics and Snyder Cut as well. So, guys, I will see you next time. And join us tomorrow for another episode of The Four Nerds over on the Four Nerds Network. Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time only on the Four Nerds Network. And we'll see you guys next time.